They had it all: fame, fortune, influence, the kind of life most people can only imagine. But what if everything could disappear in an instant? What if the very love they trusted became the reason it all fell apart? At the peak of their success, some Black celebrities watched their empires crumble. Not because of a lack of talent, not because of bad business, but because of relationships that spiraled into scandal, heartbreak, and irreversible damage. One was caught in a controversy so explosive it tore apart both his family and his career overnight. Another, after suffering a life-altering stroke, made a vow that stunned everyone: never again. It sounds unbelievable, but it happened. And these are just a few of the most shocking stories. Behind the glitz and glamour lies a darker truth, one filled with love, betrayal, and consequences no one saw coming. Brace yourself for a powerful, unfiltered look into the hidden realities of fame in 2026. Dwayne Johnson. What happens when even the strongest man in the world is shaken? Not by fame, not by failure, but by love. For years, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has stood as a symbol of power, discipline, and unstoppable success. From dominating Hollywood to inspiring millions with his work ethic, he seemed untouchable. But behind the spotlight and the million-dollar smile lies a story few ever saw coming. A deeply emotional chapter tied to the woman he's loved since 2007, Lauren Hashian. After his painful divorce from Danny Garcia, Lauren entered his life like a quiet storm of healing. She brought warmth, balance, and a renewed sense of hope. Together, they built a beautiful family, welcoming 2 daughters and eventually sealing their love in marriage in 2019. To the outside world, it looked like a perfect second chance at happiness. But perfection can be deceiving. As Dwayne's career skyrocketed, so did the demands on his time. Endless filming schedules, business ventures, and global commitments slowly created distance at home. Lauren, once his safe haven, began to feel invisible, like she was watching his life from the sidelines instead of living it with him. Instead of opening up, her frustrations surfaced in quiet criticisms, small, sharp words that slowly chipped away at their connection. By 2021, the pressure reached a breaking point. Dwayne was no longer just carrying the weight of his empire, he was carrying emotional strain, exhaustion, and the silent collapse of his personal life. His body began to show signs of severe burnout, and doctors warned him to slow down before it was too late. For a man who built his identity on strength and resilience, being forced to step back felt like losing control of everything he had worked for. And at home, things were no better. The bond that once felt unbreakable began to fracture under the weight of unspoken pain. Dwayne, who had conquered every challenge thrown his way, now found himself overwhelmed, not by the world, but by his own emotions. The passion that once fueled him started to fade, replaced by doubt, exhaustion, and a haunting question: was it all worth it? What made it even harder was the realization that the woman who once gave him strength had, unintentionally, become part of the burden he carried. In the end, what looked like a fairy tale love story was far more complicated, a powerful reminder that even the strongest people can feel lost, and that sometimes, the greatest battles aren't fought in the spotlight, but within the heart. Idris Elba, a love story that unraveled into quiet devastation. Known as one of Hollywood's most magnetic leading men, Idris Elba built a legacy through powerful performances in hits like Thor and Luther. On the surface, he embodied success, confidence, and effortless style. But behind the spotlight, his personal life told a far more complicated story, especially when it came to love. In 2013, Idris began a relationship with Polish actress Niana Garth, and by 2014, they welcomed a son together. What looked like the beginning of a beautiful new chapter quickly spiraled into one of the most painful periods of his life. At first, their romance felt like something out of a dream, passionate, hopeful, and full of promise. Niana's charm and vibrant personality made her seem like the perfect partner. But over time, cracks began to form. Tension grew as she voiced frustration over Idris's demanding career, accusing him of prioritizing fame over family. What started as private disagreements soon turned public, with criticism that cut deeper than anyone could see. Those moments didn't just strain their relationship, they took a toll on Idris himself. At the peak of his career, he found himself slipping into isolation, emotionally drained and disconnected from the work he once loved. The passion that fueled his rise began to fade under the weight of personal turmoil. By 2016, the relationship ended quietly, without resolution, just silence and lingering pain. But the emotional scars didn't fade as quickly. Long after the breakup, the impact remained, shaping both his personal and professional life in ways few could understand. Naina wasn't the only challenge Idris faced, but that heartbreak left a mark that couldn't be easily erased. A man admired by millions suddenly had to fight to find his balance again. His story is a powerful reminder. Love, no matter how beautiful it begins, can also become a force strong enough to break even the strongest among us. Kanye West. A story that proves even the most powerful unions can crumble under pressure. Once celebrated as a musical genius and cultural trailblazer, Kanye wasn't just making headlines for his chart-topping success. His personal life became just as iconic. In 2014, he married global reality TV mogul Kim Kardashian, creating one of the most talked-about power couples in modern history. Together, they built a billion-dollar brand and raised 4 children, appearing to live a life most could only dream of. But behind the polished image and flashing cameras, cracks were already forming. From the very beginning of their relationship in 2012, Kanye openly adored Kim, often calling her his inspiration and muse. To the public, they looked unbreakable. Yet beneath that picture-perfect surface, tensions quietly grew. Then came 2020, the turning point. Kanye's unexpected presidential run sent shockwaves through the media, but it was his erratic behavior and deeply personal revelations that truly set everything on fire. Statements like, "Kim wanted to abort our first child," and claims that her family was trying to control him turned private struggles into public spectacle. As the world watched, criticism intensified. While Kim attempted to protect him from the chaos, she found herself blamed by many, painted as the reason behind his unraveling. At the same time, Kanye spiraled deeper into feelings of isolation, pressure, and betrayal. By February 2021, the fairy tale came to an end. Kim quietly filed for divorce, closing the chapter on their 7-year marriage. What followed was not just heartbreak, but collapse. Kanye's world seemed to fall apart, both mentally and professionally. The empire, the love story, the image, it all faded, leaving behind a man struggling to rebuild himself from the ruins. This wasn't just a breakup. It was the fall of a legend's most personal battle, a transformation from brilliance to brokenness, played out on the world stage. Jordan Peele, the tragic fall of a horror genius. Jordan Peele, the masterful mind behind Hollywood's most haunting films like Get Out and Us, seemed to have it all: talent, fame, and the admiration of millions. His personal life mirrored this perfection when he married comedian Chelsea Peretti in 2016, and just a year later, they welcomed their first son. To the outside world, it was the picture of happiness, a brilliant career and a perfect family. But beneath the glossy surface, a quiet tragedy was unfolding. Chelsea, once the heartbeat of Jordan's life, slowly felt suffocated by the shifting family dynamic. As Jordan's career skyrocketed, the long hours, endless creativity, and public acclaim pulled him away from home. What started as small frustrations grew into deep-seated feelings of neglect. Chelsea, always supportive, began to feel invisible, like a shadow beside a man consumed by ambition. Jordan, in turn, found himself trapped between the demands of his soaring career and the impossible expectations at home. Sleepless nights became his constant companion as he questioned every choice. Was he chasing greatness or destroying everything he loved? The tension mounted, eroding the foundation of their marriage. The man celebrated for his brilliance and audacity now wrestled with self-doubt, isolation, and exhaustion. This collapse didn't happen in a single moment. It was the slow, unstoppable unraveling of a love story once full of promise. Jordan Peele, who once controlled every narrative on screen, found himself powerless in the most important story of all, his own life. Love, which had seemed his greatest ally, had become another weight he could never escape. Taye Diggs. the picture-perfect husband trapped in a love that quietly broke him. Taye Diggs, the Hollywood heartthrob celebrated for his unforgettable roles, married Broadway sensation Idina Menzel in 2003, a union that seemed straight out of a fairy tale. In 2009, they welcomed a son, completing what looked like the ultimate dream family. But behind the smiles and red carpet moments, a silent tragedy was unfolding. Idina's soaring career often kept her away, leaving Taye alone in a house that should have been filled with laughter and warmth. Nights spent returning to emptiness turned love into a heavy, unspoken burden. Despite his unwavering devotion, he felt invisible in his own home, a spectator in the life he had built. By 2013, the cracks had grown too wide. They separated, and a year later, their marriage quietly ended. For Taye, the split was more than heartbreak, it was an emotional upheaval. The fame, the awards, the success that once defined him suddenly felt hollow. As Idina reached new heights on stage and screen, Taye wrestled with a painful truth, that love and ambition, when unbalanced, can leave even the brightest star in darkness. Once radiant, now hollowed by unfulfilled love, Taye Diggs became a man defined not by his triumphs, but by the haunting void left in their absence. Terry Crews, once the picture of the ideal man, saw his perfect world crumble because of a hidden battle he could never fully control. The muscular, charming actor, known for his humor and magnetic smile, captured the heart of Rebecca King Crews, a talented and devoted woman. They married in 1990, building a family with 5 children and presenting to the world a life of pure bliss. To everyone watching, they were perfection. But behind closed doors, tragedy was quietly taking root. Terry spent years striving to be the perfect husband, the devoted father, the unstoppable actor. Yet, lurking in the shadows of his life was an addiction to pornography, a secret that slowly began to erode the very foundation of his marriage. Rebecca first noticed the subtle shifts, Terry growing distant, withdrawn, trapped in a world she couldn't reach. The pain hit like a tidal wave when she discovered the full truth, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the endless nights of hidden struggle. She fought to save their love, offering patience, therapy, and endless tearful conversations. But guilt and helplessness weighed on Terry like a stone, turning what was once a bond of love into a shared burden of despair. Eventually, Rebecca made the gut-wrenching decision to leave, taking their children and leaving Terry alone in an empty house with the echoes of what was lost. Despite a career that shone brighter than ever, the emotional wound of his broken marriage never healed. Terry Crews, the man who seemed unstoppable, had been undone by the darkest corners of his own life. Omari Hardwick. From Hollywood darling to a man caught in the crossfire of love and judgment. Omari Hardwick, one of the most celebrated black actors of his generation, captivated audiences with his raw talent and undeniable charisma. Off-screen, he built what seemed like a picture-perfect life with Jennifer Fauch, a white woman, and their 2 beautiful children. But beneath the surface of smiles and family photos, their love story was quietly unraveling. When Omari married Jennifer, he believed love could conquer any obstacle. He hadn't anticipated the storm that would come from his own community. Many accused him of turning his back on his roots, of betraying the very culture that had shaped him. The whispers, the judgment, the harsh stares, they cut deep. And Jennifer, despite her devotion, couldn't shield him from the weight of it all. Caught between his identity and his heart, Omari began to withdraw. Cultural differences and the invisible pressure of societal expectations gnawed at the foundation of their marriage. Conversations that once flowed easily now ended in tension. Small disagreements ballooned into battles that seemed impossible to win. The love that had once brought them together now felt powerless against the divides that grew wider with every passing day. Eventually, the inevitable came. Omari and Jennifer quietly parted ways, leaving behind a story of love marked equally by beauty and pain. For Omari, the heartbreak was compounded by the scrutiny of a world that refused to see his choices as personal. His career continued, but the memories of a love that couldn't survive prejudice and pressure lingered, a reminder that even the strongest hearts can be tested by forces beyond their control. Dave Chappelle, a comedy legend, gave it all up for love, and paid a personal price. Revered as one of the greatest comedic talents of his generation, he rose to fame with groundbreaking performances on Chappelle's Show and headlined arenas across the world. In 2001, he married Elaine Mendoza Faye, a woman of Filipino descent, and together they welcomed 3 children. On the surface, their life seemed perfect, but behind closed doors, it was far from it. Elaine was a devoted wife, unwavering in her support, but Dave carried burdens invisible to the public. Fame, crushing expectations, and the relentless pressures of the entertainment world weighed heavily on him. Though his wife stood by his side, she couldn't fully understand the silent struggle he faced. They loved each other deeply, yet the emotional gap between them grew wider with each passing day. The breaking point came in 2005, when Dave walked away from Chappelle's Show, stunning fans and sparking rampant speculation about his mental health. Elaine, confused and heartbroken, struggled to comprehend why he would make such a shocking choice. Their inability to truly connect emotionally left cracks in their marriage that would never fully heal. Seeking refuge, Dave retreated from the spotlight, moving to a quiet farm, far from the chaos of Hollywood. His story is not just one of professional sacrifice, but of a private, emotional tragedy, where love was real, but sometimes even love isn't enough to bridge the gaps life creates. Ice-T, betrayed by love. Ice-T, the hip-hop legend whose name is synonymous with power, talent, and influence, built an empire that few could rival. In 2002, when he met Nicole "Coco" Austin, it seemed like a new chapter of joy had begun. Coco, a glamorous model and actress, soon became his wife, and in 2015 they welcomed their daughter, a moment of pure happiness that seemed unshakable. Their love story, despite a notable age gap, captivated the public and dominated headlines. But no one could have predicted that the greatest heartbreak would come from the woman Ice-T trusted most. In 2013, scandal struck. Coco was photographed in compromising situations with another rapper, and rumors spread like wildfire. The media pounced, turning Ice-T's private pain into a public spectacle. For a man who had always valued family above all else, the betrayal cut deeper than anyone could imagine. Each public appearance became a trial, stares of judgment, endless questions about loyalty, and whispers of doubt shadowing every step. Yet, despite the betrayal, Coco fought to save their marriage. She issued a public apology and worked tirelessly to rebuild their bond. Deeply wounded, Ice-T eventually chose to give love a second chance. But the scars of betrayal lingered, leaving a haunting question: could a love once shattered ever truly be whole again? Michael Jordan, the untold struggles behind the legend. Michael Jordan, the man who redefined basketball and became an icon for generations, didn't just dominate on the court. He built an empire that extended far beyond sports. After a long marriage with Juanita Vanoy, he married Cuban-born model Ivette Prieto in 2013, seemingly stepping into a picture-perfect life. But appearances can be deceiving. Behind the glamour and smiles, a private struggle was quietly unfolding. Ivette, stunning and ambitious, began demanding more from their marriage than Michael ever imagined. She expected him to give up his work, his passions, even the life he had fought so hard to build, dedicating himself entirely to family. Slowly, the man who had conquered every arena he entered found himself trapped in a life that no longer felt like his own. Tensions escalated. Arguments became a quiet storm that drained him, chipping away at his energy, his spirit, and even his health. Despite all his fame and success, Michael felt powerless in the very life he had chosen. The legendary athlete, once a symbol of strength and unstoppable drive, became a shadow of himself, sacrificing the joy of his triumphs for a private battle no one saw. What the world witnessed was perfection, but behind closed doors, Michael Jordan lived a silent tragedy, a relentless struggle between love, duty, and the life he longed to reclaim. Donald Glover, a creative genius caught between the life he built and the love he craved. Known to the world as Childish Gambino, Donald Glover is a force of artistry. Music, acting, directing, producing, he does it all with brilliance. He embodies limitless creativity. But behind the spotlight, his life tells a different story, a quiet, painful struggle that few could imagine. His relationship with Michelle White, a white woman, became a battleground of expectations and judgment. From the start, Donald faced harsh criticism, not just from fans, but from his own community. People questioned why a man so deeply rooted in Black culture and heritage would choose love outside of it. The scrutiny was relentless, leaving him torn, trapped between family, culture, and career. The tragedy deepened over time. Despite Michelle's love and the bond they shared with their 3 children, she couldn't fully comprehend the pressures Donald carried: the exhaustion of navigating cultural and racial conflicts, the weight of protecting his reputation, and the sacrifices his career demanded. Their love, once a sanctuary, became a series of exhausting battles, each night at home a test of endurance. This invisible war took its toll. Donald's mental health wavered, his creative spark dimmed, and projects that once thrilled him lost their magic. The very things he loved, his family, his children, his craft, pulled him in opposite directions, into a cycle he couldn't escape. Donald Glover's tragedy isn't a headline. It's the silent conflict of a man whose heart and mind are at odds, where love and career refuse to coexist, and where even a genius cannot find peace. Wesley Snipes, a Hollywood titan brought to his knees by love. In the 1990s, Wesley Snipes was the action star everyone wanted, an icon of talent, charisma, and power on the big screen. But no one saw it coming. His relationship with Jennifer Lopez, one of Hollywood's brightest rising stars, would become the turning point that changed everything. In the early 90s, Wesley and Jennifer were Hollywood's it couple, turning heads wherever they went. Yet behind the glamorous red carpets and flashing cameras, tension simmered. Jennifer's unstoppable ambition began to cast a shadow over Wesley's career and confidence. She refused to be the quiet girlfriend waiting in the background. Her meteoric rise left him feeling unseen, unappreciated, and increasingly isolated. Every premiere, every headline, every round of applause seemed to celebrate Jennifer, leaving Wesley in the wings of his own life. Their private battles spilled into the public arena, straining not only their love but Wesley's career. Opportunities slipped away as he struggled to regain footing in an industry that waits for no one. After their breakup, Wesley was left grappling with heartbreak, professional setbacks, and a sense of lost identity. Jennifer Lopez continued her ascent to superstardom, while Wesley faced a dark, lonely period where the spotlight he once commanded began to fade. Kevin Hart, the Hollywood comedian once adored for making millions laugh, faced a personal scandal that shook his world. Rising from small comedy clubs to blockbuster stardom, Kevin seemed unstoppable, but behind the spotlight, his marriage to Tor Hart was quietly unraveling. The couple, together since 2003, appeared inseparable, a love story many envied. But in 2009, as Kevin's career skyrocketed, he crossed paths with a captivating model, beautiful, bold, and relentless. What began as fleeting encounters quickly turned into a secret affair, pulling Kevin into a world of temptation and lies. Meanwhile, Tor remained devoted, holding the family together even as Kevin strayed. The truth came crashing down in 2011, shattering the family and Kevin's carefully crafted public image. Tor, heartbroken by the betrayal, filed for divorce, leaving Kevin to face not only the loss of his marriage but the humiliation of a tarnished reputation. Fans and media alike turned on him, and his career, once soaring, faltered under the weight of scandal. Beyond fame and fortune, Kevin was left grappling with his own choices, the affair leaving deep scars on both his career and his soul, reminders that no amount of laughter could mask the pain of betrayal. Jamie Foxx. Heartbreak, betrayal, and a vow that stung. Jamie Foxx, one of Hollywood's most dazzling talents, renowned for his genius in both acting and music, has always captivated the world. But behind the spotlight, life hit him hard. His secretive romance with Katie Holmes, spanning 2013 to 2019, seemed filled with quiet happiness, but heartbreak was on the horizon. In 2023, tragedy struck when Jamie suffered a severe stroke. During his fight for survival, he felt the painful distance of the woman he once trusted to stand by him in his darkest hour. Tensions rose, loyalty fractured, and as he slowly recovered, the relationship quietly ended. Then, in a 2024 Netflix comedy special, Jamie joked that he would never date white women again. What seemed like humor was actually a raw glimpse into his pain, a mixture of betrayal, abandonment, and emotional devastation. This heartbreak wasn't just about lost love, it was about losing support when he needed it most. Jamie Foxx's story reminds us that even the brightest stars can be shadowed by personal tragedy, and that love and loss can cut deeper than any illness. Charles Barkley. 3 decades of hidden pain behind the fame. On the court, he was a force of nature, dominant, fearless, and unforgettable. But off the court, Charles Barkley faced battles the world never saw. His marriage to Maureen Blumhardt, a white woman he wed in 1989, drew public scrutiny and racial tension that neither love nor determination could erase. Though their bond was real, the pressures mounted relentlessly. Retirement from basketball didn't bring peace, it brought a mental health crisis, leaving Charles feeling trapped in a life he couldn't fully navigate. Even with Maureen's steadfast support, he often felt unseen, isolated by traumas both physical and emotional. Heart-to-heart talks only revealed the widening gap between them. Love alone wasn't enough. Charles's pain wasn't about Maureen, but about carrying burdens she couldn't fully understand. In a marriage defined by affection yet shadowed by unspoken struggle, he found himself fighting loneliness, even in the arms of the woman who stood by him. Seal. A love story that seemed perfect, yet ended in heartbreak. Known for his powerful, soulful voice, Seal has always been a shining star in the music world. In 2005, he married supermodel Heidi Klum, a global fashion icon whose beauty seemed almost otherworldly. Their union looked like a fairy tale, talent, fame, and love intertwined, blessed with 4 children, including Heidi's daughter from a previous relationship, whom Seal embraced as his own. But behind the glitz and glamour, tragedy quietly took hold. Their marriage, adored by the public, was slowly unraveling. Heidi's demanding career and skyrocketing fame created a chasm between them, leaving Seal feeling isolated and abandoned. Every tour, every red carpet appearance widened the distance, and the man who loved so deeply found himself yearning for a connection that was slipping away. Though their love had once been strong, the emotional gap became impossible to bridge. The joy of shared memories couldn't outweigh the ache of longing and loneliness. Even with their 4 children, Seal's heart carried a weight that no amount of love could lift. In the end, he endured the profound sorrow of giving everything to a love that, despite its brilliance, could not survive. Chris Rock. A marriage shattered by betrayal. Chris Rock, hailed as one of the greatest comedians of his generation, has lived a life of dizzying highs and soul-crushing lows. In 1996, he married Malik Compton Rock, believing he had found his forever. With 2 beautiful daughters and a career at its peak, life seemed flawless. But behind the laughter, darkness brewed. Chris's struggles with fidelity, compounded by pornography addiction and personal demons, slowly tore his world apart. Secret affairs with white women became the hidden cracks in his marriage, cracks that would eventually splinter the foundation entirely. Malik, a devoted partner, reached the breaking point and filed for divorce in 2016. The aftermath was devastating. Chris didn't just lose his wife. He lost the life he had built, the respect of those he loved, and a sense of himself. Even as his career continued to soar, he wrestled with guilt and the haunting whispers of scandal. No standing ovation, no sold-out show could erase the weight of his mistakes. The laughter he brought to millions masked the pain that now defined his private life. A stark reminder that even the brightest stars can fall hard when their personal choices ignite a storm of consequences. Sidney Poitier, the legendary Bahamian-American actor whose name is forever etched in Hollywood history, lived a life of unparalleled brilliance. Yet behind the fame and accolades, his personal life harbored a heartbreak few ever saw. In 1976, he married Joanna Shimkus, a Canadian actress of Lithuanian descent, in what seemed like a perfect, storybook romance. But beneath the glittering surface, cracks were forming, cracks that would eventually shatter the illusion of marital bliss. As Sidney's career soared, captivating audiences on screen and commanding respect behind the camera, his marriage quietly unraveled. Joanna, admired by many as the ideal partner, battled isolation, exhaustion, and the weight of unspoken cultural and emotional divides. Sydney's relentless focus on work left little room for the connection and care she desperately needed. In her loneliness, Joanna sought comfort elsewhere, engaging in extramarital relationships that would ultimately devastate Sydney. A man devoted to family, Sydney was blindsided by the betrayal. Though it stemmed from years of neglect and emotional distance, the shock cut deep, leaving wounds that would linger for the rest of his life. What the world saw as a golden Hollywood love story had, in truth, become a tragic tale of love lost, miscommunication, and the harsh cost of fame. Tiger Woods, the golf legend brought to his knees by scandal. Once the face of perfection in sports, Woods dominated the greens with unmatched skill, yet his personal life hit a storm no one could foresee. Married to Swedish model Ellen Nordegren in 2004, he appeared to have it all: a loving family, a glittering career, and a fortune that seemed untouchable. But beneath the flawless image lurked a secret that would shatter everything. Despite his iconic status, Woods gave in to temptation, engaging in multiple extramarital affairs. What he thought he could keep hidden exploded into public view in 2009 when one of his affairs with a white woman came to light, igniting a firestorm of media scrutiny and scandal. The fallout was brutal. Multi-million-dollar endorsements vanished almost overnight, costing him around $22 million in 2010. His reputation, once untouchable, lay in ruins. Heartbroken by betrayal, Ellen filed for divorce, leaving Woods to face the harsh truth. He had lost his family, his endorsements, and the flawless public image he had spent years cultivating. Recovering from such a fall would prove to be one of the greatest challenges of his life. Eddie Murphy, a comedy legend whose laughter once lit up the world, found himself trapped in a heartbreak he could never escape. Known for his uproarious humor and unrivaled dominance in Hollywood, Eddie was once untouchable, a comedic icon whose films broke records and left audiences in stitches. Yet behind the glitz and the applause, his life quietly unraveled, pulled into chaos by a dreamlike romance with model Paige Butcher. From the moment they met in 2012, Eddie was captivated by Paige's striking beauty. Their relationship seemed like the ultimate Hollywood fairy tale. Engaged in 2018, married in a private ceremony in 2024 after more than a decade together. But beneath the surface of this picture-perfect union, tragedy was quietly brewing. Paige, enchanting and alluring, became both muse and storm in Eddie's life. Her demands for a lavish lifestyle, constant pressure to prioritize her world, and the endless arguments slowly took their toll. Eddie, once a powerhouse commanding global stages and box office gold, began sacrificing his career for love. He turned down lucrative deals, missed major opportunities, and watched as his once thriving career plummeted. Films that should have been blockbusters went unnoticed. Contracts were canceled. The unstoppable force of comedy that had defined Eddie Murphy seemed to vanish, buried under the weight of unrelenting demands and emotional strain. What began as a love story slowly morphed into a personal and professional tragedy. The marriage that should have brought joy became the catalyst for Eddie's downfall. A legend, once untouchable, was left hollowed out, crushed by the very love he had given everything to preserve. Richard Pryor, comedy's brightest star and his darkest tragedy. Richard Pryor, an immortal icon of comedy and cinema, dazzled the world with his razor-sharp wit and unforgettable performances. Yet behind the laughter lay a life riddled with scandal, heartbreak, and personal demons. Across 7 marriages and countless turbulent relationships, Pryor's brilliance was always intertwined with pain. None of his relationships were as haunting as the one he shared with Jennifer Lee, his white wife. In 1981, at the pinnacle of fame, Pryor married Lee. His films were blockbusters, his comedy shows legendary, he was untouchable. But fame could not shield him from the battles within. Pryor fought drug addiction, crippling depression, and a mind teetering on the edge of collapse. Jennifer fought to pull him back from the brink, but her love could not overcome the chaos. The darkest moment came in 1980, when a drug-fueled episode led Pryor to set himself on fire, leaving his body scarred and his spirit broken. He survived, but the man the world adored was forever changed. Jennifer stayed by his side, helplessly witnessing the man she loved spiral further into darkness. Even after their divorce, fate reunited them in 2001, but Pryor had become a shadow of himself, drained, fragile, and haunted. Their reunion offered no redemption, only a bitter echo of the pain they had shared. When Pryor passed away in 2005, the world mourned a genius, but Jennifer Lee carried the intimate knowledge of his suffering, forever intertwined with one of the greatest tragedies in the life of comedy's brightest star. Derek Luke, a rising Hollywood star, shattered by the very love he once trusted. Known for his unforgettable performances in Antoine Fisher and Glory Road, Derek embodied talent, dedication, and the promise of stardom. But behind the flashing cameras and red carpet smiles, his marriage to Sofia Adela Hernandez, a Spanish-American singer and actress, hid a painful story of ambition, sacrifice, and heartbreak. When Derek and Sofia wed, they seemed like the perfect artistic power couple. Derek, quiet and disciplined, complemented Sofia's fiery personality and unrelenting drive for fame. Yet what began as a dazzling union soon became a consuming blaze. Sofia's relentless push for Derek to put her career above his own cost him one golden role after another. Opportunities slipped through his fingers while her dreams faltered, leaving Derek trapped in a cycle of unappreciated sacrifices and relentless criticism. The breaking point came during a fiery confrontation when Sofia dismissed his career as not worth the sacrifices she had made. Her words cut deeper than any critic ever could, leaving Derek broken, disillusioned, and drained of his once burning passion. Over time, the love that had once inspired him became the source of his greatest tragedy. A marriage that stole not just his career, but his peace of mind and sense of self. Ben Harper, a musical genius whose soul has sung to millions, faced one of life's harshest notes in his marriage to Laura Dern. Known for his golden voice and deeply introspective songs, Ben's music spoke of heartache, hope, and the human experience. But behind the spotlight, his own story was far more complicated. In 2005, he married Hollywood actress Laura Dern, a brilliant and ambitious star whose presence lit up the screen. Their union began like a dream, and the arrival of their two children seemed to complete the picture of a perfect family. Yet, behind closed doors, reality told a different story. As Laura's career soared, she grew distant and demanded more from a marriage that Ben, absorbed in his craft, struggled to give. His music was not just a career, it was his life's purpose, and the long hours and touring left little room for the emotional connection she craved. The differences between them, her drive and his devotion to art, slowly tore at the foundation of their relationship. Arguments simmered, nights grew lonely, and their home transformed from a sanctuary into a battlefield of unspoken resentment. Despite his best efforts to juggle fatherhood, love, and artistry, Ben found himself exhausted and emotionally frayed. Laura, though she loved him, recognized that their personalities and life visions were too far apart to reconcile. By 2013, the marriage quietly ended, leaving Ben not just heartbroken but carrying a wound to the very spirit that fueled his music. Their love story, once filled with hope, became a chapter of loss and longing, a painful reminder that even genius cannot always harmonize with life. Hank Baskett, from football star to marital tragedy. Hank Baskett was once a football hero, admired for his skill, determination, and star power on the field. But all of that fame and glory came crashing down when he entered a stormy relationship with Kendra Wilkinson, the glamorous model and reality TV sensation. Married in 2009, they looked like the perfect couple, celebrity royalty with a picture-perfect life. Yet behind the smiles and red carpet appearances, trouble was brewing. In 2014, shocking allegations emerged about Hank's involvement with a transgender woman, sending shockwaves through the public and the media. Suddenly, his career, reputation, and personal life were thrown into chaos. Kendra, once always radiant, began to show the emotional toll of the scandal. The fallout was devastating. Hank faced relentless public scrutiny, social backlash, and the collapse of the marriage he had fought to protect. Kendra tried to heal the wounds and save their love, but in the end, forgiveness proved impossible. By 2018, she filed for divorce, officially closing a chapter of heartbreak in 2019. This is just one story among 25 black celebrities who once ruled the spotlight, only to lose everything in controversial relationships with white women. What do you think of these shocking tales? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and make sure to subscribe, because Hollywood's most unbelievable stories are far from over.